This is the Khoodeelaar television channel being broadcast, timed at 2100 hours GMT on Saturday, the 17th of August 2024. I'm back outside the general area where the three baby kittens expect the food at this time of the evening or the day or the night. This is 2100 hours, approximately 2100 hours GMT on Saturday, the 17th of August 2024. Before this recording began, I saw there's a iron container flat 21D Belgrade Court, London E13 8RP, and what looked like the image of the employee called Robert fiddling with the items that he appeared to be burning. What he was burning was, of course, must have included all the documents and materials that I was forced to leave behind. And the man Robert lied about my being allowed to enter the general perimeters and the times to feed the baby kittens once. Because he had said that he would cooperate with me last week in taking the items from the flat to the car that I had or I was going to hire. When it came to the actual transporting of the items to the car, the hostile minicab driver began screaming. And when I asked Robert to help carry the stuff from the outside of the flat to the car, Robert tersely said to me, "I'm working." Now, if what he was doing was working, what was I doing that didn't amount to work? As the adult social care team member, Olude Omomi has stated to me dozens of times, even when he talked to me for not more than half an hour, he said the phrase, "They want you out of here." In the course of half an hour, every half an hour, he said this at least dozens of times. So even if he had separately met me on 4 or 5 occasions from December 2023, he must have said this phrase to me, "They want you out of here," at least 80 or 90 times. So if they wanted me out of here, was such an important, urgent matter, how was it that Robert dismissed my efforts to securely take the stuff from the flat to the car and then not return to the flat to take the rest of the items? How was that not work? If not the most important work of the time, of the day, of the week, of the whole calendar year? It seems that it is like a what kind of era can describe the behavior of these people? What kind of movement in human existence can best and most accurately identify the behavior of cruelty, dishonor, negligence, indifference, contemptuous lack of cooperation exhibited by these people, one after the other, one after the other, no matter whether they are employed as social workers, so called, adult social workers, so called, or at the registered charity, astoundingly wrongly called the Joy Foundation, which on its website boasts that it has been operating as a provider of temporary accommodation for the London Borough of Newham for more than 30 years. It has not been providing temporary accommodation to the London Borough of Newham in accordance with the requirements of the CARE Act 2014 or in accordance with the requirements of the Equality Act 1999 or in accordance with any other parts of the existing so-called common law duties of care or of due process or rule of law or respect for the individual. La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minaz zalimin. La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minaz zalimin. More than 1,400 years ago, these words revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as part of the history preceding the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be on him, where one prophet was saved by reciting the prayer, saved by a big fish. That big fish was a godsend, and the fish swallowed the prophet and carried the prophet safely any amount of distance. It is not stated to my knowledge anywhere, to my knowledge, which is subject to change based on the actual coming across evidence showing the actual distance. Thousands of miles, and thousands of miles away, the prophet, endangered by the evilness, was safely delivered at a safe location. So this is the prayer. La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minaz zalimin. La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minaz zalimin. La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minaz zalimin. These three baby kittens, the black and white one, the grey one, and the shuri one, the shuri-like one who dances, because he or she is compared to the other two, young, sprightly. So before it comes to the notional spot of the food, it kind of plays with the positioning itself from a distance and then approaches very carefully. You can see that it is playing and being very careful, very cautious to avoid being surprised by any ambush. But the other two, the grey one and the black and white one, they go very gently, approach the food, and they eat the food, the gourmet food. I have that same box of gourmet food carrying with me in the carrier bag, but I'm not allowed to go in there. Now, before I set off from the new location in E6, 1JS, before I set off, I had several times thought about calling this Joy Foundation tonight where Robert would be on duty. As Ibrahim told me when I called him on the phone during the day when I was traveling to Beckton, Tesco, to sort out the Tesco rocket account, that Ibrahim, expected Robert to come by about 4 p.m. Now, when I started setting off for this location now this evening, I thought I would call the sickly, wrongly named Joy Foundation telephone number and attempt at a discussion with Robert, who had said to me a few weeks earlier that I would be allowed to enter the general premises of the complex and to leave the food for the kittens. And he would be aware of that and he would make the relevant others aware of that. But obviously, he had not. Or if he had been ignored, or he had forgotten, or he doesn't or didn't care at all about the expectation of the kittens for a meal, for the meal of the 24 hours. The other thing that deterred me, quite apart from that knowledge, that he would be careless, uncaring, cruel, negligent, contemptuous. The other thing that deterred me was that impact any row, and heated exchange with him, Robert, would have on me. For the entirety of the 51, 52, what is the period now there? If I left Bangladesh in 1972 and entered the Indian territory on the 31st of October 1972, because I was on my way to Kolkata, because there were no real flights out of Bangladesh in 1972 to Europe. And I left that so on 31st of October 1972. So I left that on 31st of October 1972. And at the border that I arrived at to cross into the Federal Republic of India was the border between Bangladesh and India at a point called Jessore, Jessore. And to accompany me there up to that point was Shaukat Ali. Now, Shaukat Ali has turned out to be a completely typical, absolute dishonest crook and a shitbag. The shitbag became one of the dozens of people that I knew in Bangladesh that only decided on whether to continue communications with me after I arrived in the United Kingdom, based on entirely my ability to deliver material goods as gifts for them. Now, these morons had no idea, still have no idea as to what travails I've had to encounter, I'm still encountering. So that was October 1972. So 72, 82 is 10 years, 92 is 20 years, 2002 is 30 years, 2012 is 40 years, 2022 is 50 years. And this is just short of 50 years, 52 years, because it would be 52 years in October, on the 31st of October 2024, it would be 52 years. So for the 52 years, I have been engaged completely reluctantly in almost minute by minute battles for continuation. The battles that have been imposed on my existence and on my purpose and my mission and my objective and my physical, material, moral, ethical progress by those who are supposed to be or who would have been supposed to be by fact of family, blood, etc. This is a 262 going to Galleon's Reach, and these two women just about got on. LF24ZPB. LF24Z, P for Peter, B for Bertie. That's the number of the bus, license number of the bus, 262 going to Galleon's Reach. Most of the buses, in fact, all the buses are driven by, in my view, people trained to be rude, insulting, disrespectful, unappreciative, obstructive, unsettling to passengers. Now, most of the people who board these buses, most of these people have got issues, especially either they are not carrying baggage, or they are frail physically, or they are in a rush because they have had to run to catch the bus, given a bus. And the bus drivers operate on the assumption that these are all athletes, robustly healthy, and able to withstand any amount of shock to their physical system. The thing called the Transport for London, TfL, which is a branch of the executive regime of Sadiq Khan, who is the incumbent in the post of the mayor at the expense of Greater London. These people who operate or control or make the decisions about the direction, the use of the TfL are themselves absolutely devoid of enlightenment, devoid of social purpose, devoid of social calling, because they don't have any program to subject these drivers or potential drivers to any course, any program of showing respect, tolerance to the people who use the transport system, and especially talking about the buses. Buses used to be open access before Ken Lyons to Livingston at the GLC, I think, became in charge effectively of transport as the leader of the Greater London Council X. And when he became mayor for the first time at the expense of Greater London in 2000, Ken Lyons to Livingston set about changing the access to the buses. And contrary to the myth that Ken Lyons to Livingston is a socialist, so called, the criminal actually is a hardcore right wing fascist. The behavior that Ken Lyons to Livingston indulged in as incumbent in the post of leader of the Greater London Council, 19, May 1981, up to the abolition of the Greater London Council in 1985-86, by the then. The behavior that Ken Lyons to Livingston indulged in was absolutely fascistic on every level, at every stage. Because of the 300 or so separate interventions by me, exclusive world-class record interventions by me in challenging Ken Lyons to Livingston every time that I did that challenge. Because of that, he considered me as equivalent to a force, a military force, a combined force, an armed force that he thought was about to stage an incursion. into the main complex that used to be called the county home, which housed the Greater London Council. The Ken Lyons to Livingstone recruited not one, at least 8 or 10, up to 10, physically bulky, remarkably bulky thugs as part of the security blockade, stopping me from entering the county hall, despite the fact that I carried a pass. I carried an official pass on the ground that I was elected by the community to become part of the then Inner London Education Authority. I was elected to enter the county hall. But because once inside the county hall, mainly active on the what used to be called the principal floor, notice the bombastic kind of word, phrase, principal floor, the first floor, well, the ground floor, where all the offices of the Inner London Education Authority and the Greater London Council were situated. And once I was within the county hall, I would enter various meetings that would be on the list being held on the day. And depending on the meeting that would have Ken Lyons to Livingstone as an attendee, I would choose the one or more than one, depending on the sequence or sequences. And I would then raise the questions at an appropriate point to Ken Lyons to Livingstone. Now, as shown, had been shown in Dhaka in East Pakistan between 1967 and 69, when I had a challenge thrown at Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, and the challenge defeating Zulfikar Ali Bhutto in his entire life's political purpose. When I did that and I felled, Felled, felled Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, there was no recovery by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto from that felling. It was very telling, the felling that I actually obtained against Zulfikar Ali Bhutto Z. A. Bhutto, the biological father of Benazir, that is unprecedented Benazir Bhutto. I confronted her by an assistant that was working for me when I was elected editor, publications editor of the Northeast London Polytechnic Students' Union in 1976, when Benazir Bhutto was elected president of the Oxford Union. And I had this particular assistant contact the Oxford Union with a couple of questions that I briefed this assistant with, but the questions were not answered. All of the accounts were published in the NEPAM, N-E-P-A-M. NEPAM is a name, I think, contrived by one of the previous editors of the Students' Union in 1970s. Northeast Polytechnic Activists Monitor. So the person who spoke to my assistant on behalf of unprecedented Benazir Bhutto said that he was not available to answer questions and she was not going to answer questions. So the questions that I had put, 9 questions that I had put to Zede Bhutto in the 1960s at the Institute of Engineers in Dhaka, then East Pakistan, thousand times were the questions that I was able to put to Ken Livingstone during the years 1981 to 1976, let's say, at events held in the county hall, on the principal floor of the county hall. And like, or in the same way that Zulfikar Ali Bhutto failed to stop me asking questions, Ken Livingstone also failed to stop me asking questions. And the failure on his part meant that he got increasingly desperate in order to find a way of showing, apparently within quotes, tolerance to my presence, but actually acting to stop me asking questions and stop me getting in there. So what he would do would increase the number of security staff who would find any way of delaying my entry on the day, every day that I arrived at the county hall. They didn't have any legal, evidential, material, physical reason to stop me, but they would find any kind of excuse to say that they had a right to search and make sure that I was a safe person to be allowed into the county hall. So these are 8 to 10 bulky thugs, mainly of African or Caribbean origin, but mentally complete morons. They had no sense of democracy, they had no sense of civic participation. They had only one rule. They must have been given the kind of physical description. They must have been given the physical description that approximated to this man who would try to get entry, gain access into the county hall, into the principal floor. And on that basis, they would try to stop this individual. So the population of Greater London at the time in 1981 to 1986, what was the population? The population would have been what? Between 8 to 9 million. The Greater London population would be, let's say, between 8 to 10 million. Now, these people would produce at least, let's say, 100 or 200,000 persons eligible to be described as politically active. This is now 21, 22 hours GMT on Saturday, the 7th of August. I'm recording this broadcast, doing it live on StreamYard.com as part of the Khoodeelaar television channel, being recorded, being broadcast under the banner of the BabyAngelGeronimoManifestoeditions. And in the background, behind me, is the kind of area known as the Joy Foundation, which is sick making the wrong and contradictory name. In the current issue of the fortnightly private lie, dated the 16th of August 2024 to 29th of August 2024, there is a piece on page 14 of the private lie in the Rotten Boroughs section, headed Tears for Fears, which is an update to say that 21 sitting councillors on Neom Borough Council is the total number of councillors that have now lodged complaints against Roxana Fias based on her behavior, arrogance, bullying, threats, intimidation, and refusal to answer questions and engage in exchanges of question and answer with real transparency with the councillors. So I shall be ending this particular one and coming on to the next one. This is part E, so it will be F, the next one.